chair calls Jennifer Toon. Hi, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Jennifer Toon. I'm a mental health peer policy fellow, and I'm representing the Coalition of Texans with Disabilities today, and we are in favor of HB 140. You know, you wouldn't know by looking at me or my accomplishments as an advocate or a freelance writer that I have a mental health condition, or that that condition untreated has been severe enough that it landed me in prison for almost 19 years, half of my life. I don't know if any of you know what it's like, for a lack of a better term, to be out of your mind, to not be well in your thinking, so much so to lose touch with reality. I have. It's a frightening experience, and definitely made worse in the criminal justice system. When I committed my offense, I didn't fully understand what I had done or why. I might have vaguely intellectually understood, but there remained a huge disconnect. I know that legally proving insanity hinges on the defendant not knowing or knowing right from wrong. But this is difficult to explain to you. But I want you to know that you can have a vague cognitive awareness of right and wrong. But when in crisis, when in the throes of an episode, when thoughts and feelings are like teeming ants all over your mind, nothing makes sense. I knew right and wrong, but I was literally out of my mind. Everything was distorted. It actually took me years to move into a space of stability to fully grasp the magnitude of my disorder and my offense. Current protections for defendants with severe mental illnesses are inadequate. A person's competency to stand trial is assessed at time of the trial rather than at the time of the offense. Although insanity defense does consider the defendant's mental health status at the time of the offense, it hinges on cognitive capacity, which may be significantly impacted by mental illness. And I'm telling you that it is. I'm telling you this from personal experience. The death penalty is reserved for the worst offenses, with the intent to give victims justice, but also to ensure that the defendant completely has the reckoning, the understanding of the gravity of the offense they've committed. People with severe mental illness, they just can't. They might die never understanding why they were put to death or even that they were being put to death. There's no reckoning, and there's certainly no real justice for victims in that. Thank you.
Okay, so help me understand a little bit about the insanity versus what we're trying to do here, because you touched on it a little bit.
Yes, ma'am.
So insanity it goes to the mental state at the time of the offense.
Right.
So what would be the difference of the serious mental illness, the crisis at the time of the offense, in the insanity defense? How would we distinguish the two?
Well, and this is where this becomes such a gray area, right? So especially in terms of defining insanity, and when I was going through the court process, it was, did you know right from wrong? And it's just not that clear cut for a person that is having a mental health crisis. Okay. Right? So you could intellectually kind of understand right and wrong, and I'm speaking from my own experience. But when you're in crisis, somehow that gets blurred. There's more to it than just an intellectual capacity to understand that what you're doing is right or wrong. You can, but again, if you don't have a mental illness and you've never experienced that crisis, it's really, that's why I said it's really hard to explain.
Because the spectrum of right and wrong moves.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Because I think that the right or wrong, it's not what I would think is right or wrong when I'm in that my mindset, because I think I hear what you're saying now. Yes, because the spectrum has moved over a little bit, because what everyone else thinks is right or wrong is not what you would think is right or wrong. So right. You've moved the spectrum over because of your crisis.
Yes, ma'am. So even if we can kind of even agree what's right or wrong, the lens that I'm looking through my mental health crisis and my especially severe mental health issues that that this bill addresses, it sounds like we're talking about right and wrong on the same page, but I'm looking at it through another lens, and that's what's,
We're talking about apples and oranges.
yes, ma'am.
And so we may be saying right or wrong, and you're agreeing to it, but you're not agreeing to what I'm saying. I think I hear what you're saying.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay, so you may be saying, I know what's right or wrong, and I knew what I was doing, but you're not agreeing to it in the same sense.
Yes, ma'am. That's,
Does everybody get that?
yeah. I know, it's
It's
really
very complicated, but I don't want you to agree to it when you're not,
Yeah.
you're in crisis.
Yes, ma'am.
Representative Crockett?
First of all, I want to thank you for your courage to share your story because, sometimes we can see, especially if someone is going through at that time, we can see and say there must be something going on with that person. But as you've stated, you can walk around and, because you are stable, you don't have to share your story. So I appreciate you being here. And, dealing with this reminds me of a young lady that literally we just discharged finally. I've had her for about 6 years. But she was found to be insane at the time. And the delusions were so strong that she really believed that the person that she shot was trying to kidnap her. And so in that situation, there was nothing wrong with trying to shoot someone who's trying to kidnap you. The problem was that the reality is that no one was actually trying to kidnap her. Right. And so in that scenario, she was found insane. And for those that don't really understand, even once you're found insane, it's not, you get a pass.
Right.
You don't get a pass. It's not that we say, well, this person is insane, and so bye. Instead, literally, I've had her for the last 6 years. We have a process where people go to the hospital and they work with them to try to get them to the point that they are safe enough to come out, get them stabilized. It took her about 2 years before we could get there. And even still, there were court proceedings that we were having every single week up until like 2 weeks ago, where the judge is monitoring and things like that. And so, there are some good things that we have, but we have a lot further to go, especially when it comes to mental health and the overlap that we see within criminal justice. And so I thank you for your advocacy, and I thank you for sharing your story. And this sounds like Rep. Rose has a pretty good bill.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your testimony. Mm-hmm. The chair